So please give it up for Simon Horton, award-winning author, negotiation expert.
Thanks so much, Esther. I knew when I saw that Esther was introducing me today, I knew it was going to be a good day. So good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well and excited about today. So my name is Simon Horton, and in the next half an hour, I'm going to talk about how to change their mind, how to persuade, 5 steps to persuade anyone, anytime. As Esther said, I've been teaching this kind of stuff, persuasion, sales, negotiation, influence for 20 years or so, working with organizations like Goldman Sachs, with American Express, with the British Army as well, though not at the same time as Esther. And I've taught hostage negotiators and all kinds of people, written a couple of books on the topic. And one thing that I've learned from all of this is that we are persuading, we are selling all the time. And I'm sure you guys know this. Put your hands up if you deserve a pay rise. Exactly. I knew it. I knew it. When I saw you, the first thing I thought was, you deserve a pay rise. So important things like pay rises depend on your persuasion skills. Getting the client to sign the deal depends on your persuasion skills. Put your hands up if you've got kids. Tons of persuasion. Put your hands up if you're in a relationship. Persuasion. Put your hands up if you want to get out of a relationship. I see a few people going, oi. So we really are persuading all the time. We are selling all the time. So if we can get good at this, such that we get our outcome and improve the relationship at the same time, and we can do this smoothly, quickly, easily, then that's going to transform our life. It's going to transform every aspect of our life. And it's certainly going to help us sell a lot better. But persuasion isn't easy. Other people have got their own opinions. It's really annoying. So we have to take a different approach if we're trying to persuade. And for my last book, what I did is I interviewed people who persuade successfully in extreme circumstances. So I interviewed hostage negotiators, I interviewed peace treaty negotiators, people who avoided war through their negotiation and persuasion skills. I interviewed world-class salespeople, I interviewed billionaires, cabinet ministers, psychotherapists who work with addicts, people hackers, all kinds of people who persuade successfully in extreme circumstances. And what was really interesting is that all these different people working in different contexts had independently developed the same method, had independently developed pretty much the same method, which is what we're going to look at in this next 30 minutes. Specifically, we are going to look at the hostage negotiation method. Hostage negotiators, usually called Denzel or Bruce, work in extreme circumstances. It's polar opposite demands. One side is threatening to blow everything up. It's life and death. And yet they still get successful results through using a standard framework. In the UK and the US and most of the West, they use a standard framework called the behavioral change stairway. The behavioral change stairway. And it is a stairway to behavioral change. It's 5 steps to behavioral change. The good news is that the steps are simple. When you look at them, you'll think, oh yeah, I do that, that's good. And I'm sure you do. And to the extent that you get your outcome, you're doing it great. To the extent that you're not getting your outcome, you need to do it more. Do it more, do it deeper, do it better. There is no magic trick that the hostage negotiators don't learn some amazing hypno look into my eyes kind of thing. They just use these basic, simple steps, but do it deeper, do it better, do it more. So, step 1, active listening. And I'm sure you guys are good at this, and you can do it better. So active listening, asking lots of questions, open questions, and listen, and listen, and listen. And then ask more questions, and listen, and listen, and listen. And be okay with silence, because typically they're not okay with silence, which means they fill that silence with information that is useful for you, for the persuasion, for the sale. And you're listening out for content, obviously, but you're also listening out for how they make their decisions. You're listening out for how they make their decisions. And they will tell you this. They will tell you all the time how they make their decisions. So specifically, you're listening out for their goals. What are they trying to achieve? You're listening out for their fears. What do they not want to happen? What are they worried about? You're listening out for other emotions. People make their decisions based on their emotions much more than we think. So you're listening out for those. You're listening out for their values. Values are beliefs that we have about the world, about what's good or bad, what's right or wrong, what's important or not important. As such, that's how we make our decisions. We make our decisions with respect to what's good, bad, right, wrong, important or unimportant. So you're listening out for those, and you're listening out for their personality type. And there are all kinds of different personality type profiling tools. I'm sure you know many of them. And so you're listening out for their goals, their fears, their emotions, their values, their personality type. And then now you can put your message in terms of that, in such a way that they are much more likely to say, yes, good idea, let's do it. The good news is that they tell you all of these things. The bad news is that they don't tell you it explicitly, but they do leak it. Somebody give me the name of a controversial character out there in the world. There aren't many, but give me the name of a controversial character. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. There's a good one. Let's work with Donald Trump. So you could ask me, do I like Donald Trump? And I could say, yeah. Or I could say, yeah. Two answers, identical content, polar opposite meaning. First one, yeah. Sarcastic yes, meaning no. Second one, affirmative yeah. Yeah, I do actually. No, I don't actually. But identical content, polar opposite meaning. All of the meaning was through the nonverbals. So we want to be able to tune into the nonverbals to be able to fully understand their meaning, those things that aren't said but are leaked. That's what we want to be listening out for. So it's the emphasis. Why did they put emphasis on a particular word? That's really interesting. Maybe there's a pause before a certain word. That's interesting. What went on in that pause? What was the processing going on in that pause? Maybe you asked them a question and they sigh before answering. Wow, what happened there? What went on in the brain to make them sigh like that? That's really interesting. Or the tonality, or the gesture. The gesture isn't random. The gesture says leaks what is going on in the brain. And notice I said this. That is pointing to my brain. I could have said in my brain. But so these gestures, they're not random. They're expressive of what's going on deeper in the brain. The facial expression is the same. This is what we want to be listening out for. Okay, what we are going to do, we are going to play a fun game. When I say fun, I mean it's fun for me to watch. And what you're going to do, I want you to find a partner. So the person sitting next to you will be perfectly good. So find your partner now. Now, one of you in your pairs, put your hand up. One of you in your pairs, put your hand up. Okay, the person with your hand up, I want you to point to the other person and say, you're person A, you go first. So this is the game. This is the exercise. So person A, you are going to say a shortish sentence. Something along the lines of, oh, I'm really excited about today. I think it's going to be a really great day. Something that kind of length. Not too much longer, not too much shorter. Person B, you're going to listen and you're going to play it back to them exactly as they said it. So word for word, and pause for pause, and tonality for tonality, and emphasis for emphasis, and gesture for gesture, and facial expression for facial expression. Because that's where the communication is. So So person A is going to say the sentence. Person B is going to repeat it exactly how they said it. Person A say a second sentence, a different sentence. Person B repeats it. Person A do the third sentence. Person B repeats it. Then swap around. Cool. Off you go. Okay, cool. Let's pause there. And hopefully you enjoyed that. But also, hopefully, you noticed some things that you wouldn't normally notice in your communication. That typically we are so focused on the content that we don't notice all of this other communication that is going on in these other channels. And hopefully in that exercise, you did notice things that are there. They're there all the time. But we generally don't notice because those channels are drowned out by the verbal channel. There's a television program called Lie to Me with Tim Roth in it. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Very good program, recommend it if you haven't seen it. Tim Roth plays a professional lie detector where he's brought in by the CIA or the FBI or something like that when they want to find out the truth. And it's based on the work of somebody called Professor Paul Ekman. Ekman is a god in the world of psychology. He was the consultant for the program. What he does is he films people at 100 frames a second. And then he looks at it at one snapshot at a time, one frame at a time. And in that 100th of a second, you can see what he calls a micro expression on the face. And he teaches people how to read that in real time. So let's say you are being interviewed by the police and you are asked, where were you on the night of the murder? And you're thinking, well, I was standing above the body with a gun in my hand. That's where I was, but I can't say that. Right, what shall I say? I know, I will say I was down the pub with my mates. My mates hate me. They'll never stand up for me. What shall I say? Okay, I'll say I was visiting my mum. I haven't spoken to my mum for 5 years, right? What am I going to say? And so if we lie, what happens in our brain is that firstly, we answer the question truthfully. We have to, in our brain. It's a reflex. We answer the question truthfully. And then we say, oh, I can't say that. And then we go through multiple possible answers, evaluating each with respect to what we've already said and what questions they might ask in the future. And then what makes the most coherent story, and then we answer. And we do all of that in about half a second. So every single one of those steps, those micro thoughts, is in the hundredths of a second and shows itself on the face, and you can learn to read that. And so poker players know this. It's powerful stuff. So active listening. Secondly, show empathy. Acknowledge their experience, acknowledge the legitimacy of it, acknowledge their emotional response to it, that is legitimate too. Emotional labeling. So any emotion that you notice, mention it, label it. Especially if you think they've got a negative emotion about you, then bring it out in the open. Listen, I know that you're upset with us because last time this happened. Or I know I'm getting that you're angry because you think we did this or something like that. So bring it out in the open. Show empathy and build rapport. You guys, salespeople, I'm sure you're brilliant at building rapport. I've met loads of people this morning already. You are all brilliant at building rapport. But anything like finding common ground is great. They've just come back from Magaluf. You've just come back from Magaluf. You know, you're going to be best friends for life. But find that overlap, whatever it is. And human beings are so rich in our identity. There is always an overlap to be found. They did an experiment where they got a group of Manchester United fans to come in and write an essay, which personally I thought was a bit ambitious, but to write an essay. Any Man United fans in the audience? Oh, apologies. To write an essay on what it was like to be a Man United fan. And then it was set up so that when they left the building, somebody, an actor, ran past, tripped over, and was in obvious pain. If that person was wearing a Man United shirt, 80% of people went over to help. If they were wearing a Liverpool shirt, 20% of people went over to help. Because I'm a Man United fan, they're a Man United fan, I'll help. I'm a Man United fan, they're a Liverpool fan, I won't help. But the really interesting part of the experiment was in the second phase. And in the second phase of the experiment, They got a similar group of Manchester United fans to come in, write an essay, but this time the essay was on what it was like to be a football fan. Not a Man United fan, but a football fan. Then when they left the building, somebody ran past, tripped over, was in obvious pain. If that person was wearing a Liverpool shirt, 60% of people went over to help. 3 times as many as before. Because it was no longer, I'm a Man United fan, they're a Liverpool fan. It's now, I'm a football fan, they're a football fan. So it's your job to find that overlap. This is a lobster. Some of you may have known that already. And we're just going to have a slight diversion. It is relevant, but we're going to talk about lobsters specifically. We're going to talk about the sex life of lobsters. I don't know how much you know about the sex life of lobsters. But lobsters, as we know, have a hard shell. And making love wearing a hard shell like this is difficult, apparently. So what do? The female lobster sheds the shell. And now it's safe, now it's easier for them to make love and procreate the species, which is great. Except for the shell is protection. And so it's now dangerous, because we all know that unprotected sex is dangerous. Boom, boom. So what do? And specifically, the danger is that the danger is actually from the male, that the male might eat the female lobster, and she doesn't want that to happen. So what she does is she sprays a chemical over the male lobster. And it makes the male lobster fall madly in love with her. And the lobster says, I'm not going to eat her. I love her. I want to spend the rest of my life with her. So what is, in lobster, obviously, what is the chemical? It's the lobster variation of oxytocin. Hands up, who's heard of oxytocin? Okay, cool. So oxytocin is the bonding chemical. When a mother has a baby, oxytocin goes through the roof. When 2 people meet and fall in love, oxytocin goes through the roof and then trails off over a 5 to 7 year period. It explains a lot in my life, certainly. Oxytocin is the bonding chemical. It is the chemical of rapport. What increases oxytocin? Well, they did an experiment at a wedding. They measured everybody's oxytocin levels a few days beforehand for the baseline, and then again on the day of the wedding. And everybody's oxytocin levels had increased. And they'd increased specifically in direct proportion to how close they were to the bride. So the brides went up the most, the bride's mother, the next, etc. With one exception, the groom. Now, to be fair to the groom, their oxytocin levels did increase, but just not as much as we'd expect from the model. But the reason was their testosterone level also increased. They were the big man for the day, their testosterone level increased, and testosterone is an oxytocin inhibitor. So anything that increases testosterone will reduce oxytocin, will reduce trust, will reduce rapport. So anything too competitive, too aggressive, too macho, too male, quite simply, increases testosterone, reduces oxytocin, reduces trust, reduces rapport. Other things that increase rapport, showing empathy. Showing empathy is very powerful at doing that. Using emotional language, so we've discussed both of these already. Using we language, we, us, our. Good news, chocolate, red wine, comfort foods, all increase oxytocin. And the most effective way they found to date is by showing trust. If you show trust in that person, that increases oxytocin all round. They will now be more trustable. They will trust you. You're much more likely to get the sale. So everybody, take a pen. Take a pen. And hold it above your head. A phone will do if you haven't got a pen. Hold it above your head and rotate it in a horizontal plane clockwise. Rotate it in a horizontal plane clockwise. Keep it rotating the same way. Slowly bring your hand down until you're looking down onto it. And what way is it going now? Anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise. What happened there? Did we cross the equator? If you're looking up to it and it's going clockwise, when you're looking down onto it, it should be going anti-clockwise. I see some people going, what? What do you mean? Practice it at home. What has that got to do with persuasion and negotiation and sales? Perspective. Things look differently from different perspectives. You will be saying clockwise, and they'll be saying, no, anti-clockwise. And you'll be saying, no, clockwise. And they'll be saying, no, absolutely not, anti-clockwise. And you are both convinced of your rightness. And you are both convinced that the other person is a complete idiot or being deliberately destructive. And you will think that of them, without doubt. And they will think that of you. So if we want to persuade, we need to put our outcome in terms of their perspective. So we want to, cool. If we want to persuade, we want to put our outcome in terms of their perspective. So put our objective, our goal, in terms of their SWOT, their opportunities, their threats, their strengths and weaknesses. They don't care about our opportunities and threats, they care about theirs. Put it in terms of their values, all of which we've detected from our deep listening, from our non-verbal listening that we did earlier on. And we put our outcome in terms of their goals, their fears, their emotions, their values, their personality type. And do that in a simple, vivid statement. So simple, none of these long, flowery emails or whatever. Short emails, short paragraphs, short sentences, short words are good. And vivid. Use the compelling language. In any situation, you've got a choice of words available to you. Choose the most compelling language. In fact, choose the language that you've heard them tell you. The language that they put the emphasis on and such like. So you choose that. And notice, by the way, that the influencing is in step 4. It's in step 4. That typically we go straight in at step 1, trying to influence, making our proposal, making our suggestions, telling people what to do. And it doesn't work. It needs to be step 4. And if you do the first 3 steps and then you do your persuasion and it doesn't work, it's because you haven't done steps 1, 2, and 3 enough. So again, there's no magic trick, there's no hypno thing that they do. They just go back to the listening, deeper, better, more, and the showing empathy and the building rapport, etc. And then step 5 is the behavior change. They do that. The hostage taker releases the hostages. The client says, yeah, I'll buy. Your boss gives you the pay rise that you deserve. Your kid says, yes, Mum, I'd love to tidy the room. So they do the behavior change. You just have to do the first 4 steps. And one thing that I want to say is that this sounds like a very, often people think, oh, he's going to teach us about how hostage negotiators work. Great, we're going to learn how to use machine guns and hand grenades and all of this kind of stuff. And yet it's a very soft, ethical approach. It's based on the deep listening. It's based on the co-creating. And it's exceedingly successful, even in extreme circumstances. Hostage negotiators are tremendously robust in their outcomes. They get those outcomes, very high success rate. Hostage negotiators is actually a misnomer. They don't negotiate. They don't say, well, look, you can kill half of them, but release the other half. They don't do that. They are very tenacious, very robust on their outcome. But they take this soft approach to achieving it. And it is that combination that is most effective. So I wish you the best of luck putting it into practice. Have a fabulous day today. I'm going to be around. Do come up and chat. I'm also going to be in one of the rooms talking about winning business at the right price. So when your customer does that sharp intake of breath thing, can you do a little bit better kind of thing? How do we deal with that conversation? So have a lovely day. Best of luck putting it into practice.